You may have heard about CityWorks Expo. For years now, we've been bringing people together to share big ideas for better places. Expo connects innovators across the community and around the globe through an ongoing series of events, conferences, and social media. And our goal is to inspire and support people like you, the ones who have a passion for making their neighborhoods, communities, and cities better places to live, work, and play. Check us out at cityworksexpo.com to learn more. Become a part of the Expo community and share your story. You never know who you will inspire with your big ideas.
Good morning. My name is David France. Question: has anyone ever had an experience that just came out of just left field and just completely changed your worldview? Anyone? Some people? Well, for me, when I was growing up, my parents were new immigrants to the United States, and one of the things they would do as we were growing up to get to know the country is every weekend we would just get in the car and we would just get lost. We would just drive around, we would get lost, and we would just find our way back. And I love that so much. I found that I kind of worked that into my life. So I travel a lot, and one summer I was traveling in Brussels, and I was lost. And I'm a violinist, and as I was lost, I came upon a violin shop. And I was like, oh, I'm a violinist, of course. I'll go into this violin shop. So I walked into the violin shop, and of course, there's a gentleman who's making violins. And so I'm watching him make violins, and before I get to the counter, just to kind of introduce myself, he moves from the counter where he's making violins, and I watch him, and he moves to a whole different counter. And when he gets to the other counter, he starts making coffee. And when my eyes move, I then see there's a bunch of people sitting there, and I'm completely confused. So I walk up to the counter, and I said, "What is this?" And he said, "Well, it's a violin shop, but it's also a coffee shop." And I was just like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And he said, "Well, I'm a luthier. I make violins, but making violins was too lonely, and I'm really social. So I built a coffee shop onto my violin making studio," and there were explosions in my brain, because what I realized was he found a solution that was unique to him, that existed at the intersection of who he was. And so the business model isn't that, okay, now we should all go out and we should build coffee shop violin making studios all over the world, but rather that we can feel actually safe, that we whatever we pursue can exist at the unique intersection of who we are. And so when I saw that, I just realized, wow, that means I can do anything. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do with that? What's my intersection? So I thought, okay, I'm a violinist. I love to travel. How can I combine these? How can I intersect these? And so about 3 years ago, I followed one of my dreams. I thought, I want to go to Europe, and I want to travel through Europe with no money. So I got a ticket to Berlin, and when I landed in Berlin, I literally had no money. And my plane was not out of Berlin, it was out of London 3 weeks later. And so if I wanted to see my family again, I had to figure out how to get from Berlin to London, and like I said, with no money. So what I had a violin, I had an oversized bag, and I thought, okay, let's do this. So I started playing on the street all over Europe, playing music on the street, and people took me in, and I was able to just travel all over Europe for 3 weeks just by making music on the streets. And it was really funny because my friends who knew that I was doing this, they would check in on Facebook, my status updates, to see if I was alive, so like, David France is in Dresden, okay, good. And after this trip, when I got to London, finally, after 3 weeks playing on the streets, I learned 3 incredible lessons. And they were, 1, you don't need a lot of stuff when you travel. 2, if you don't need a lot of money. I had no money. And then the third lesson was that if you take a leap of faith, a great adventure could await you. And little did I know that those 3 lessons would really be the foundation for the project that's my whole life right now, which I'll get to later, of course. So this is me with my grandmother. So my story starts, I'm David France, I'm a violinist, I'm a dreamer, I'm a social entrepreneur. My mother would say I'm crazy. And my parents moved to the United States from the Caribbean in search of the American dream. And all my siblings, they all ran track, and I was a really shy kid, and I thought, why run when you can eat? and, and so I was like, I'm not running. And so when I was 6 years old, someone came to my school, my public elementary school, and they played string instruments. And they played violins, violas, cello, and they said, close your eyes and imagine, like, what do you want to play? And I chose the violin. And I was so shy when I was younger that the kids in my school thought I couldn't even speak. They thought I was actually a mute. And so I needed a voice, and the violin became my voice. I wasn't doing well in school, and slowly after learning the violin, I started connecting my practice methods on the violin with my study methods, and I was getting, my grades got better, my handwriting got better. But really early on as a violinist, when I was in elementary school, my friends, my black friends, my white friends, they all started telling me that playing the violin was for white people. And a little bit later on, when I was in middle school, like my own violin teachers, they didn't expect I was going to do much with the violin because I was black. And they kept passing me off to lesser teachers and lesser teachers and lesser teachers. And my mother, she kind of saw that earlier than I did. She saw this pattern, and I saw it a little bit later. But when I really saw it was when I was studying. I was doing a master's in violin performance, and in the city that I was living in, they hosted a violin conference. And I was sitting in a coffee shop, and walking by the window was one of my middle school violin teachers. And I thought, I'm doing a master's in violin performance. I want to show her, like, hey, like, this is what look at what I've done. So, but I put down my fork, and I ran up to her. She was walking with a gentleman, and when I caught up to her and the gentleman that she was with, the first thing the gentleman thought, he thought I was trying to mug her. And then when she realized who I was, she said, "Oh, you're still playing the violin?" And I thought, wow. Since I was 9 years old, I wanted to become a professional violinist. And so I found myself fighting institutions, really trying to demand the education that I was promised. And so fast forward to 2009. 2009, I was living in Bermuda, and the website, which you all know, YouTube, they had their first ever international competition. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to see if they could create the first ever orchestra auditioned on the internet. And so they called it the YouTube Symphony. And so I thought, all I have to do is practice more than everyone else in the world, and I have a shot. I thought, okay, this levels the playing field. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that. But then I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that, but that's not all I'm gonna do. I thought, this is YouTube. This is a platform for sharing ideas. And so I thought, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a video of how I'm gonna win, so that other people can not only see how I'm going to win, but if they want to win too, they can practice with my video. So I created a practice video of how I was going to practice the material for the audition. So I did that, and long story short, I get an email, and I found out that I won. I won a spot in the YouTube Symphony. And so my parents, like I said, they're from the Caribbean, and I'm not sure if you know anything about the Caribbean, but there's some big families. So my father has 19 brothers and sisters. My mother has 18 brothers and sisters. So my parents live in Connecticut. They bought a van. They're so proud of their son, the YouTube Symphony. They filled it up with as many aunts and uncles as they can fit in the van, drove to Carnegie Hall, but I had a huge secret. What I didn't tell my parents was that I was gonna be one of the concert masters of the YouTube Symphony. I was going to be one of the lead violinists of the YouTube Symphony. And so after one of the pieces in the concert, it was a very theatrical concert, as you can imagine. It's YouTube, and the lights go down, it was black, and then when they come up, I'm sitting in the first chair. And I really believe that moment was a realization of my parents' American dream, that they could come from a small country in the Caribbean, this island called Nevis, and one of their children, born in the United States through a free violin program, could lead an international orchestra at Carnegie Hall. And thank you. Thank you. And that experience has changed my life because YouTube very kindly gave me a platform to speak. So I was in Time Magazine and BBC News and Al Jazeera English, and they put the mic in my face and they said, well, what do you think about this experience? And I thought, this is really amazing. But then I thought, well, what about people in communities who don't have access to this kind of education that I clawed my way to? Like could they ever get into a YouTube symphony? You know, and I just thought, well, what about the democratization of access to a high quality music? And I just started kind of beginning this dialogue about this field that's now called music for social change. And so I went back to Bermuda. I was really excited, and I thought, okay, you know, I had a great experience. I want to keep striving, but then I kept being nudged by this idea of how do we give access to inner city young people or economically deprived young people, to give them an access to a high-level education that could really transform their lives. And while in Bermuda, actually through YouTube, I came across some videos called El Sistema, this orchestral program in Venezuela, and I thought, wow, I think this is what I want to do. And for me, like one of my huge life philosophies is I believe that talent nurtured through study, failure, success, and a resilient nature really gives someone a storehouse of wealth, valuable enough to be cherished, but only truly enjoyed when given away in service towards the happiness of others. And in short, I call that give your life away. And so this idea that after I got this YouTube symphony, and I thought, what about other people? Like, how do we help other people? That idea, that give your life away idea, you know, I thought, you know, like this is what I want to do in life. This is what's going to make my life meaningful, you know. And like so many ideas, we think, oh, like we're the originator of the idea. Like, oh, give your life away. How brilliant. But a couple years ago, my father, he had a birthday party, and he doesn't really speak much, but and definitely hasn't spoken about my grandmother, his mother. He told a story about his mother, my grandmother, who passed away before I was born. And my father said when he was a little boy in this poor village on the island called Nevis with his 19 brothers and sisters, his poor mother every morning would make baked goods for him to take all through the village and give to all the neighbors. And my father said when he came home every day, the most favorite part of his day was telling his mother all the thank yous from all the neighbors. And I thought, that's give your life away, you know? And then I thought some more, and I thought, wait a minute. When I was growing up, by the time I was born, my parents had a small house in Connecticut, but there were 15 people living there, and most of them weren't even related to us. And my parents just, they realized, okay, now we're in America, now we have something, and now we can share this with others. So this idea of give your life away was being shared with me my whole life. So this story that started with my grandmother who made baked goods for my father, then I saw my father giving, like in a sense, our house away, you know, to so many people, you know, and that led to me getting this philosophy of give your life away. And so when I came upon this YouTube video in Venezuela, I thought, wow, this is really amazing. Like, what's the story behind this? And so I started researching, I started digging. And so in Venezuela, 40 years ago, Venezuelans were not allowed to play in symphony orchestras. They thought, well, you're Latino, and this is Western classical music. So what they would do is they would bring in Europeans to play in the orchestras. So there's a very famous story of a tuba player who, after he went to music school, went to the center of the town, and he burnt his tuba because there was nothing he could do with the tuba. So an economist, conductor, and just social activist, his name is Dr. Jose Antonio Abreu, he thought, you know what, this is unjust. And what I'm going to do is let's create an orchestra for our people. So he put a call out, and he said, hey, we're going to form an orchestra. And the only space he had was a parking garage. And so on the day of the orchestra, 11 people showed up. And he gave them all instruments. And he said, with these instruments, we're going to change the world. And now, 40 years later, there's 500,000 young people all over Venezuela playing in orchestras. And their best orchestras are some of the best orchestras in the world. The conductor of their top orchestra, the Simon Bolivar Orchestra, his name is Gustavo Dudamel. Maybe you've heard of him. He's known as the #1 young conductor in the world. He conducts the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And so it started with denied access, and then a solution was created, and this program was created. And it's really amazing because these programs exist in the poorest neighborhoods, and you have orchestras. And so I thought, okay, somehow, some way, someday, I need to get to Venezuela. And 2 years later, I found out there was a fellowship that TED, of TED Talks, teamed up with Venezuela and the New England Conservatory of Boston to create a 5-year fellowship where each year they would find 10 people, 10 musicians, socially minded musicians from around the world to basically give them full fellowship to go to Venezuela to study this idea. So 2011, I had the huge honor of winning one of these spots. And so I got to actually go to Venezuela for myself and see this. And that experience was just mind-blowing. I was there from February to April, and in the last week in Venezuela, we were in a city called Coro. We met this wonderful woman. Her name is Isandra Campos. So we pull up to this small house on this, what we were told was a dangerous street, and they said, if you're going to volunteer at this particular nucleo, which is what they call the music programs there, they said, if you're going to volunteer here, this is a very dangerous street, you need to leave before the sun goes down. And I thought, perfect, that's where I want to be. And so we were introduced to Isandra Campos, and we found out that a year before I took this picture, a year before we got there, Isandra Campos, a mother of 5, she moved out of her house, and this is her house. She moved out of her house with her 5 kids, and she moved in with her mother so that the kids on her street, on her dangerous street, could form an orchestra in her house. And so 7 days a week, she has an orchestra. In the morning, she has orchestra for the kids who go to school in the afternoon. In the afternoon, she has an orchestra for the kids who go to school in the morning. And it was just remarkable. Every day we were there, all the neighbors are sitting on their lawn, and they're listening to the music coming out of her house. All the young kids are on their tippy toes, looking through the windows at the orchestra happening. And one day, she took me to the back of the house where she raises chickens. And she said, everyone that comes here, they have to pick the eggs. So I thought, okay, I've never picked eggs before, fine. So I go to the back, and I'm picking eggs, and I feel like I'm on an Easter egg hunt. And she said, do you know what I do with these eggs? And I thought, I don't know. There's a lot of kids here. Maybe you scramble them. And I think she might have slapped me. And she's like, no, I sell them. And she sells the eggs for $1 each, and that's how she buys the music. And the students didn't even have music stands. They used the back of their cases as music stands. And I stood there, and I realized, wow, there's no excuse. There's no excuse to being able to provide music. And so I thought, okay, when I go back to Boston, on behalf of what community am I going to move out of my house and sell chicken eggs? And I chose Roxbury. So I went back to Boston, and I chose Roxbury. I really fell in love with Roxbury. Roxbury is known as the most important African-American community in New England. And currently, in today's day, Boston acknowledges that it knowingly disenfranchised this community. The subway system used to go through Roxbury. It was an elevated subway system. They closed that down. They closed 150 businesses, and they just isolated the people of color in that neighborhood. And I thought, this would be a fantastic community to build a world-class orchestra. Martin Luther King used to preach in Roxbury, and Malcolm X spent a lot of his formative years there. And I thought, I want to do something in that community and for that community. And so I thought, okay, I don't have anything, but I was really inspired by Isandra Campos. And so I started going to networking events, business events, and I met a gentleman, and I told him this idea, and he got really excited. And so he took me to a corner, and he said, you've got to bootstrap this idea. And I've never heard that word. I thought he said bootleg. And I was like, what? You want me to bootleg this? And he's like, no, you have to bootstrap it. So he explained what it was, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I thought, okay, I have no money. What am I going to do? And so I thought, okay, what do I need to have an orchestra? I need instruments. So me and one of my advisors went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and we thought we need violins, violas, cellos. So we looked for people on the streets who had instruments, the shapes of violins, violas, and cellos. And we walked up to them and said, oh, you're a music student, and you play violin. If you're a violinist, you must have more than one violin. Oh, your extra violin is at home in the closet? Would you want to donate it on behalf of a kid in Roxbury? And a month later, we had 28 donated instruments. One young lady, she said, well, in Thanksgiving, I'm going back to Mexico, and I'll bring my violin. She went back to Mexico for Thanksgiving, got her violin out of the closet, and brought it back to Boston, and it was really amazing. So 28 instruments. So then I thought, okay, we have instruments. What else do we need? Teachers. So I'd been sharing this vision with my friends, and a month before we started, I said, you know what, that's a vision, I want to do this. I have no money. And so 4 of my friends agreed to teach with me for free. So I had 5 teachers, so 28 instruments, 5 teachers. So I thought, okay, I need a space. So I'd been going to Roxbury for years, meeting different constituents, and I went to a principal, and he said, you know what, none of our kids in this neighborhood want to be in your orchestra, but I'll give you the use of the space of our gym for free. And so I said, thanks. So I had 28 instruments, 5 teachers, and a gym. And 3 weeks before we started, I thought, oh no, I need kids. And so I had instruments teachers at space. So a bunch of the schools let me play for the students, and so 60 young people in that neighborhood said, we want to be in your orchestra. I interviewed them, I chose 20, and on the first day, 4 came. And I thought, okay, so we began. And I was reminded of that story when I was in Europe. You don't need a lot of stuff, don't need a lot of money. You take a leap of faith, a great adventure could await you. And I really, when I was I grew up in Connecticut. When I was growing up in Connecticut, excellent, represent. It was really, since it's such a small state, it was really, and I went to public school, it was great, but it was really obvious to me, even in high school, the educational disparities in public schools in Connecticut. You could have one school that was just maybe like a third world country, or another school that was maybe even better than Harvard in a rich community. And I thought, well, this is unjust. If the public is going to provide an education, why should the disparity be so wide? But I thought, well, I don't want to open a school. I don't want to teach reading or math. I thought, what are my interests? What's my intersection? Music. So I thought, I want to build a world-class music program to address economic and race-based educational disparities. And so that's what we built. So 2.5 years ago, with 28 instruments, 5 volunteer teachers, a space, and 4 kids, we started the Roxbury Youth Orchestra. And now 2.5 years later, we've seen increases in grades, confidence, and the students, when they come to us, they have no experience. They've never played the instruments. And in the last just 2.5 years, they've played over 25 concerts for over 10,000 people. And so, thank you. And so, like was said earlier, what we've done is we've raised the bar. And we don't accept maybe ideas that maybe they have of themselves that are mediocre. And we say, we expect more of you. And I want to introduce you in a little video to one of our students. Her name is Taylor. And when Taylor came to us, now it was 2 years ago, literally she was bouncing off the walls, and she was literally breaking instruments. And the video I'm going to show you is less than a year after she started. Again, she'd never touched the violin before. And this video is less than a year after she started, and maybe like 5 months after she was breaking instruments and bouncing off the walls.
I come every day because my mom inspires me sometimes to do my best and work hard every day. And the people who are in this orchestra are very nice and sweet, and they always want me to come, and they laugh and have jokes with me, and they're just really, really awesome.
I think that now this is the first time she's seen music as a future. Like before, she played the trumpet and she liked it and she had a good time, but now she wants to go further with music. Now she wants to be a violinist. She wants to go to Juilliard, and if she can't go there, she wants to go to Berkeley. And these are things that she never talked about before. So I see the change in that.
So it's been an incredible transformation with these students, and they've become an incredibly strong community. And I wanted to show you maybe a little bit into the community. So the next short video is a video of our first concert after the program had just started. It was maybe 3 months into starting the program, and this is a little video of what the students as an orchestra achieved in a short period of time.
I wanted to join the orchestra because I knew that playing the violin is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, so I decided to take it. Thank you.
That little boy that you see right there was living on the Xbox. Never listened to music in his life. All of a sudden, he's listening to music.
These past 3 months of being in the orchestra have been really fun and amazing, and it's changed who I am.
So all these students were absolute beginners, and for me, this is actually the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
I came to the orchestra because my sister dragged me here, and my sister, her.
I'm happy I came because I've gotten to learn something new, I've met new people, and it's been nice. Thank you.
So this is a piece that allows the community, either people who play, to kind of join in, and the audience. I want everybody up. I want Mr. Avi to come up. He's used to leading groups. He doesn't know what he's about to do. Follow him. Stay with the beat. Jazz voice. Thank you. Thank you. And so that video was now 2 years ago, and it's really amazing. The young guy who said he took a chance. This was a chance of a lifetime. So a year after that, his family moved to upstate New York, and so he's no longer in the program. But so that was now a year ago. What's absolutely amazing is in the last year since he's lived in upstate New York, when he was in the program, he wasn't on any kind of social media. He joined Facebook so that he could follow the orchestra's updates. And to this day, even as of yesterday, he likes every single post and he follows every single post, even though he hasn't been around, which is really amazing. And then the young lady who sang in Spanish, she just graduated in June of this year, and she wrote her college essay to her dream school, Wellesley, about, it was called Dear Orchestra. She wrote a letter about how the orchestra changed her life. And she got into Wellesley, her dream school, and when Wellesley posted about their incoming freshmen, they mentioned her. And so it's been just really, really amazing. But when I think of that Brussels story of that unique intersection of yourself, I really know that the tools are in your hands to really kind of creatively think and dream outside of the box as to the ways that your work will change the world. And I know that whatever you come up with will exist at the unique intersection of you. But you want to always remember that you don't need a lot of stuff. You don't need a lot of money. And if you take a leap of faith, a great adventure could await you. And even though I've been showing you a lot of music, this isn't about music. This is about hope and heroes and dreams and all the possible pathways that can grow from the seeds planted in the lives of inner city youth, nurtured with the belief that the fruit of this kind of generosity is beyond their wildest imaginations. Thank you.